Welcome back, everyone. Quite a bit to talk about, as seems to be the trend these days. I want to talk about some of the protests taking place across the country right now. I think a lot of it is just a psyop. I'll be honest with you. A lot of this has to do with the death of Tyre Nichols, which, honestly, if you look at the video, I think was an unjustified killing. Let's just be honest with ourselves. I even spoke with some police on it, and they're like, yeah, those officers were totally out of line. But it's being painted as a race issue. All 5 officers were black. The chief police is black. The head of the police, kind of ethics group is black. They're making a race issue where there's no race issue, and they're trying to use this politically. And I think this is where most of the focus is. I'm going to touch on what's happening, explain kind of the agendas behind it, who's behind it, what they're doing with it, and comment a bit on that. Also, folks, Trump is beginning his 2024 campaign, and I'll be touching on some of the points that he's campaigning on. And also, you may have seen something very interesting, which has led some people to believe that what we're watching right now is a giant distraction operation because, well, actually, Project Veritas had some very interesting undercover videos where they got a Pfizer scientist talking about directed mutation of the virus, suggesting that, at least according to him, Pfizer is at the very least considering mutating COVID-19 in order to anticipate future variants so they can create new vaccines for it, a process he admits is very dangerous. All right, folks, that said, some stuff we can't talk about on YouTube, so we'll jump over exclusively Epic TV for some of that. Again, I do an hour-and-a-half show, only about half an hour is on YouTube. But again, those of you on Twitter, Rumble, Facebook, join us on Epic TV. That is our own platform. We don't have to worry about what we say on there. It's great. We also do the live Q&As there. Be sure to join me. And let's jump into the first story. Let me jump into what's happening first, kind of on the surface with these protests. Epic Times had a story, and I'll show you a video of it just so you can get an idea of some of the protests taking place. Epic Times said this: protests erupt in cities after Memphis releases Tyre Nichols video. Here you have people marching in New York, and they're saying end racism and so on. I'll explain a lot of this. Epic Times reports that protesters have organized in several U.S. cities on Friday night following the release of body camera footage of the killing of Tyre Nichols by 5 Memphis police officers. The 5 former officers allegedly involved in the killing of Nichols were arrested and charged with second-degree murder on Thursday, after footage showing a violent struggle between Nichols and the officers was released on Friday night. Demonstrators took to the streets in different cities with various messages, some demanding justice and an end to the so-called police terror, while others with generic leftist messages about class struggle and revolution. In some locations, protests even were being led by far-left groups known as Antifa, known for being confrontational and violent during protests, according to videos circulating on social media. What are we watching here? The narrative is deeply confused. They're trying to make a race issue where race shouldn't be an issue. I should note, I did watch the video of the beating and subsequent death of Tyre Nichols. I can say, and I talked to police officers who watched it as well. It's bad. I don't want to show you it. I think it's just disturbing. But it's them beating a man, handcuffing him, beating him up, pepper spraying him. It's unjustified. Even by normal use of force standards of police, it's unjustified. And police I've spoken to, they admit that, and they think it's very bad. It looks very bad. One issue you have is that, frankly, because ironically the Defund the Police movement, you have a lot of departments with very low thresholds of training. That's one big issue. Another big issue you have is, well, police departments are different than sheriff's departments. Sheriffs, which have to abide by the Constitution. Police departments, which answer to the mayors of different cities and abide by, frankly, whatever crazy policies the mayor wants to put out. These were police, not sheriffs. The other issue you also have, and not throwing shade on them either, the other issue you have is diversity hires and also just people not applying like they used to. The pool from which a lot of departments can actually hire from has become smaller. I don't know the history of these officers. I don't know how long they've been there, but it's bad. I know. Danielle, you're mentioning. I read 3 of the cops were gang related. I've read different claims on possible motives. I know people are saying this is actually possibly a personal thing between these officers and this individual. Regardless, it's pretty bad. And the impact of it is going to be this, basically. You're going to watch officers become less and less interested in enforcing the law. And you're also going to watch the crowds claim this is racism, although, again, there's no... The man who was beaten and killed was the same race as the officers and same race as the head of the police departments. It's not a race issue. The narrative they're using to try to paint this as a race issue is by suggesting that police overall, basically the entire system of justice, is racist. Therefore, the police are racist whether they know it or not. Let me show you CNN actually saying this, because this is where they're going with it. CNN reported this. Opinion: the police who killed Tyre Nichols were black, but they might still have been driven by racism. This is Van Jones saying this of CNN. He says, but the narrative, white cop kills unarmed black man, should never have been the sole lens through which we attempt to understand police abuse and misconduct. It's time to move to a more nuanced discussion by the way police violence endangers black lives. And further, it states, cops of all colors, including black police officers, internalize those messages and some act on them. You know, if you talk to James Lindsay, the way he describes basically the way these narratives are being used is this. You have third-party organizations like the ACLU and others who want to have direct roles in police trainings, direct roles, for example, in critical race theory trainings. A lot of police departments in the U.S. already mandate these. In New York City, for example, the governor here, or the mayor here, Eric Adams, he's made these types of trainings even mandatory recently for government employees. What this does is it creates third-party organizations that are not held to the Constitution or anything like that, who can dictate the narratives being preached to police officers and so on. Even some of the reporting requirements for police officers are being run by third-party organizations. For example, in some parts of the U.S., police officers, when they make an arrest, they have to state the perceived race, possible disabilities, or the gender of the people they're arresting. And of course, an officer is not going to say, I believe he was a, tree person, cat being, or something like that. You're not going to look at someone these days and know whatever crazy gender they've come up with. Where they can according to the actual doctrine, they can literally make up anything they want. No person, even if you're utterly insane, is going to be able to guess someone's imagination on what gender they think they are these days, given how far they can take it. And so, of course, police officers what do I write? It's a man, it's a woman, and this is the color of their skin, and that's basically what they do. And then you have these organizations who collect this type of data and then use it. And then you have some police officers who think it's funny, and they joke and they write just crazy stuff because they think it's funny. And then that's actually used for data, which then informs policy and so on. The budgets are affected. I think because of issues like this, morale is affected. Police officers retire early. People don't want to apply to become police officers. There's a smaller pool for hiring. And then you start running the issues where, you have less trained officers or more poorly trained officers or officers who don't want to do their jobs because they're afraid of going to prison for doing their jobs. Then you have a crime wave. Then you have other problems. And then you have calls to reform the police. This is basically where we're at right now.